So I knocked on the door of a particular elementary school and I said, what would you do with these books? How could we help you? How would these books help you teach kids to learn to read? Well, when we walked away, we had doubled the size of their school library. We had created classroom libraries in every one of their classrooms, and we'd left behind a basket of books.
I am your host, Danny Brassell, and this is the show where we celebrate the positive contributions of members of our community. And it is my pleasure, my joy to have with me today Robin Keefe, who is a dear, close, personal friend. She is the founder and director of Bookends, one of the most amazing organizations I've ever been affiliated with. Thank you so much for joining us today,
wow.
Robin.
And my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Before you and I get to talk, I really want to get the viewers to become a little bit more familiar with Bookends, and so I hope you enjoy this 4-minute video about the history of Bookends.
Some kids have lots of books. Some kids don't have any books at all.
On average, each school-age child has access to 22 books. 22 books per child is the national average. Here in the Los Angeles area where I teach, facing continuous cutbacks, that number drops to 5. 5 books per child.
How are you going to know how to read if you don't have any books? And how are they supposed to get a big imagination without books?
Many children just don't have books at home, and they can't get to a library, and schools are buying only the bare minimum.
And I think that the kids who have many books that have already read the books should give them to the kids who don't really have that many so they can enjoy books and getting a big imagination. Kids need to have books, and that's where Bookends comes in. Bookends is a great non-profit organization in which kids collect donated books, sort them, and then deliver them where they're really needed. The simplicity is that it's really just kids helping kids in such a simple way of just getting books and bringing them to a school that needs them. It's just getting and giving. Today, over 20,000 kids volunteer every year, collecting and donating more than 200,000 books.
No, we're already on 40.
Bookends differs from other organizations because a lot of other organizations will have teachers run it or parents run it. But with Bookends, if kids are running it, kids are doing everything.
You have any watch out!
Do you guys put boxes out to put the books in? Do you think the first step comes when Bookends visits a classroom and discusses with the kids the needs for books? Within minutes, the kids get it and they're eager to help.
The other school gave us books.
Ideas start flying around about ways to run their book drive, ways to get the word out at their school. All their own ideas.
And then we're gonna they should be right here because
what we're doing is we're sorting books for a school who really needs books, who doesn't have that many books.
we got 1,172 books.
2,700, yeah. Next comes the delivery. The point is that the kids who collected get to see the impact that their effort had.
Nothing, if you're in preschool. He turned away and started reading again.
When books are delivered, they don't just get stacked on a shelf and left there. They get used right away. The kids making the delivery sit down and read with the kids getting the books. You really can't get closer than that.
Think about, what goes around comes around, and if you help people out, you'll be helped too.
After it's all over, the kids who collected the books get pictures of the day they made the delivery. Sometimes they get letters from the kids who got the book.
Thank you for all the books you gave us. It could really improve our education. One of the books I started reading and is...
It's really special because they could say, "We did that. Us guys. We did the whole thing."
We appreciate this. Thank you. Sincerely, Neil.
That's the bookend story, right there. It's just getting and giving. It's kids helping kids. For every dollar donated, Bookends can place $5 worth of books on an empty bookshelf.
So all of these books are from Bookends?
There's a huge need out there, and we can make a huge difference.
We can do this together.
Wow, that's amazing, Robin. Getting and giving, kids helping kids. I really like that. Now, I was interested because the video is fantastic. It does a pretty good profile of Bookends, but it really doesn't tell us the actual story of how Bookends began. I want to know from you, let's hear about how Bookends actually began.
Well, thank you. It was a delightful story and probably one of the best stories of my life. I was raising my two kids around my passion for an orphanage, and I was serving on the board as a board of directors. And one day, my 8-year-old son woke up with the sniffles, and I didn't want to send him off to school. And so I said, "Come with me," and he wasn't so sick that he had to stay in bed, and come with me on my errands. And my errands included a board of directors meeting at the orphanage, and it wasn't unusual that.
And that was Hollygrove.
That was Hollygrove. And it wasn't that unusual that Brandon would come on campus. He loved playing with the kids there, and it was actually a residential treatment center for abused and neglected kids. And it was, again, my passion. So brought Brandon into the room, stuck him into the corner. 8-year-old boy gave him at that point his Game Boy and said, "Please, penalty of death, please be quiet," while we had this meeting. And we talked about the need to create a library, and there was 87 kids there, and it was a 125-year-old organization, but they didn't have a library. And we as adults didn't have the money. We didn't have a budgeted item and couldn't think of anything to do about it. And we tabled the discussion. I picked up Brandon, patted him on the head for being quiet, and took him home, and we never talked about the library and the need for it. Next day, he goes back to his public elementary school, and his third-grade teacher addresses the class and says, "I really believe in community service." And he says, "Even though you guys are only 8 years old, I believe you can make a difference. Does anybody have any ideas of who we could help?" And Brandon's hand shoots up, and he says, "My mom's orphanage," because that's how we thought of it, "needs books." And he says, "I know I have books at home that I no longer read, that are still in great condition." He said, "My brother's through with them too." He said, "What about if we recycle them?" But again, he said, "They've got to be in great condition." He says, "Because I know these kids, and they deserve that." Unbeknownst to me, behind the scenes for the next 3 months, the school organized through Brandon's leadership a book drive. So I go to pick him up just before the holiday break, and I pull up in my SUV onto the carpool lane, and he's standing there all 3 feet tall, all puffed up, and he's surrounded by boxes. And it's just before the holiday break, and I'm looking at these boxes, and I think he's always been a very caring kid, and I think, oh no, once again, he's now collected every critter in the school that I'm going to have to take care of, and in these boxes, I'm looking for air holes, thinking that I've got the tortoise, and I've got the goldfish, and I've got everything else in the bunny rabbit that Brandon's going to bring home. And so I said to him, "What's in the boxes?" And he says, "No, I can't tell you." He says, "We just have to get them in the car." Well, this wasn't exactly my plan for what should happen over my spring, or our holiday break. So I said, "Brandon, you got to tell me." And he put his hands on it. He says, "No." And I said, "No, Brandon, you have to tell me if you want the books into the car." He says, "Mom, you're spoiling the surprise. There's 847 books here." He said, "These are for the kids of Hollygrove. Merry Christmas."
Wow. You know, Robin, you've told me that story about 500 times, and I still get choked up hearing that story.
It was phenomenal, Danny. But that was a beginning. But really, what the story is about a community of people coming together, because the orphanage got the word out that here's this kid with this collection of books, and Brandon kept doing the book drives, and the collection continued to grow, and people wanted to reach out and help. We had an old meeting room. And so people came in, they said, "Robin, here's some money. What would you do if we gave you some money?" And I said, "I'd build shelving in there." And then people came in and said, can we decorate it this weekend? Others said, can we come in and section off those books and create a functioning library? And volunteers came in and they said, you know, teach us how to teach these special kids how to read. And so we taught them how to do that. And somebody donated a wobbly old book cart. And we refinished it, and every night the volunteers would come in and they'd take this growing collection of books and they'd push it down the hallway into the cottages, and they would sit down and they would tuck each child into bed with a book. So that's the power of an idea, and that's really the power of our community. So Brandon graduated elementary school and went on to a middle school, and they mandated community service. And he comes home one day and he says, you know, Mom, what if I try this book drive idea, not in my elementary school, but in my middle school? He says, we've already collected 2,500 books. I'd really like 4,000. In 5 days at a middle school of about, 1,000 kids, 7,000 books were donated. And this is really where Bookends started, because we had been focused on just helping this orphanage and creating this library, and now we had way more books than we needed. Well, I was walking around in a bubble in Southern California, thinking that all of our children have sufficient books to learn to read. I thought as a child, you gave your child love and affection, a great meal, and a hug, and a book. But what surprised me when I started knocking on doors is that in so many places books have become a luxury, and they shouldn't be. You know, obviously to me it was not a luxury, it was something that was mandatory. So I knocked on the door of a particular elementary school and I said, what would you do with these books? How could we help you? How would these books help you teach kids to learn to read? Well, when we walked away, we had doubled the size of their school library. We had created classroom libraries in every one of their classrooms, and we'd left behind a basket of books for the principal to give away. So there was a whole paradigm shift that when you came into the principal's office, and she would bring the kids in who'd raised a D to a C, or they weren't talking in class, they were better, whatever reward, and the reward was they got to go into that basket of books, and that book they get to keep and read.
I mean, I'm always just amazed by everything that you've done, Robin. Now, okay, so I know a whole lot about Bookends. I don't know a whole lot about you, because you raised 2 amazing kids.
Thank you.
And I know a lot of parents are out there, and they're looking for guidance and tips. What did you do so right?
Ooh, that's a loaded.
I know it's a loaded question.
It's a very loaded question. Let me answer it a little obtusely, and that is that I think it's really fun. We built Bookends on some very core beliefs, and as a founder of an organization, you find that your personality and your values are stamped onto that organization. And I think there's some fundamental beliefs that I had that in growing the organization I had to learn to articulate, because I lived and I breathed them. And one of them is really a belief in our children. And it's a belief not only that they need books to learn to read, but it's also a belief that they need the opportunity to learn to help. I really firmly believe that as we walk along, if we're walking along a sidewalk and someone falls down in front of us, there's a rare person out there who is not going to bend over, give 2 hands of support to get them back on their feet. Our children do that naturally. So the only difference between Brandon's a nice, great kid, but he's not unique. And the only difference was Brandon was presented with a problem. Someone fell at his feet. In other words, he heard about the problem of, my gosh, kids need books to learn to read. And the blessing of Brandon was he had a solution. He had a problem and he got a solution to it. And then he took action on it. And I would say that if we give our children a problem, something that they can manage around, that they can really see the difference. And that's how those core principles are how we built Bookends. Because if a child now, if I walk into a 4th grade classroom and I simply say to them, out of the blue, you know, tell me about your favorite book, and they'll get all excited. And I'll tell them, where do you read? Where's that secret place you read? And they'll sit there and they'll pause for about a moment and they said, well, there's a place in my closet that nobody knows about and they're going to be reading. So they've got somebody, they're enthused about reading. And then you ask them, you know, or you just tell them, there's some kids not too far away from you that don't have enough books to learn to read. And then if you just are quiet, they will come up with a solution. So if you give, and then and they'll say, well, why don't we collect them? And then you say, well, should it just be us in this room? And they'll say, no, I've got to have my friends. I said, well, how do we tell them? And they'll come up with the ideas. If it was you or me, we'd sit there and say, make a poster, put it on the wall. If it's them, they'll say, make a poster, put it onto a pole, and walk back and forth in front of carpool lane, picketing, to make sure everybody knows they got to bring in their books. And then we sort the books with them, we identify a recipient organization, and the magic of Bookends is if these kids then get to, the ones who've created this marketing campaign, they've collected these books, they've sorted the books, they've got them into boxes, they've lifted the boxes into their cars, now they get to then deliver them into the school and into the hands of the kids and sit down and read together. And the excitement that's generated from that. So to go back to your question, giving our children the opportunity to be that empowered. And if they can solve that problem, they have a mindset, I can make a difference. So when they see a problem, it's not with apathy, it's with, oh my gosh, maybe I can do something about it. So that core belief, that confidence, really transforms into all areas. As we grow up, we love to say that Bookends is creating the next generation of readers and leaders. And I will challenge you to say that it's not the next generation, it's now. That our kids are coming up with ideas now. And it's really, as adults, it's where we need to create the platform and the environment where they can make that difference now.
I mean, it's amazing, Robin. I talk to you, and I always feel empowered after speaking to you. You're talking about empowering kids. How empowered were you as a kid, and what was your whole background?
They say that 2/3 of the people who volunteer as adults volunteered as a child. I did the Girl Scout thing, but my first real memory was as an emerging adult, and I was 17. And you'll love this because of your literacy background. I actually volunteered for a shut-in program. And it was not as regulated as it is now. So I was 17 years old, and the first person I was delivering books to was a woman. And she was 85 years old, and she was dying of cancer by herself and had very, very little care. And the need was so clear, and my ability to help her in such simple ways that I could do, that the result of that help was so powerful that inspired me. And then I felt very fortunate that I had somebody else that was outside of my family, outside of my friends. I wanted to be an exchange student, and this woman helped me do that, guided me along. She didn't have to do it. And I think it's very funny because I never felt I adequately thanked her. I did end up and become an exchange student, but I never felt I adequately thanked her for just the influence and the impact. And then it was simply that I was 25 years old. I was in a dynamic career, but I felt my life was a little out of balance. And I went to volunteer at this orphanage. And the story is that I called the mayor's office. And I asked the mayor's office, I said, I'm 25, I would like a child to play with. And you can't quite do that now. They don't allow you to do that quite now. But there must have been something in my voice, because they gave me one phone number. After a lot of hesitation, they said, call this organization. And when I called the organization, they brought me in, and a very Santa Claus-like man came out, and he was the head of the orphanage. And he interviewed me. And to this day, it was the toughest interview of my life, because he was going to protect those kids. And he introduced me to one boy. I obviously passed the interview. And a 7-year-old boy came out, and he told me essentially, Robin, if this boy does not like you, something is wrong with you. And I loved the whole thing. So he had me hooked. And to see this 7-year-old boy and what the impact I could have on him had me hooked. Just had me hooked. I'm very fortunate. I feel that my work in philanthropy, obviously Bookends has grown to become, a major time and commitment in my life. But philanthropy has defined my life. It's refined my life, and it's empowered my life. And so it is very natural to me to want that kind of a fulfilled life, not only my children, and they see that, but also in people that are around me, because I really feel it's one of the answers of a quality of life.
Yeah, like me, you feel like you get so much more than you give, and that's the real bargain that you had no idea it was going to happen. Now, you were 17 when you worked with that woman. I'm interested in your growing up. When you were a little girl, tell us about your parents, your family life. Where'd you grow up?
That's interesting.
Tell us all about it.
Very much middle class. My father was with the Los Angeles Police Department. And was always just a motorcycle policeman. So, and I remember him bringing home, they called him Mac the Knife, and it was a homeless man, even that's almost 50 years ago, and he bringing him home, and he wouldn't eat inside the house, which I thought was kind of interesting. But he would always make sure that Mac had food. So we knew he was there. We interacted a bit with him, but it wasn't a big deal. It was just, this man doesn't have enough to eat. We're going to do something about it. I think in those times there was it was less formalized. Certainly I didn't come from parents who sat on boards of directors of nonprofit organizations. I think that the more I realized where I could best impact with my skill set, I went more quickly to leadership. Instead of just helping the 7-year-old little boy, I could help the organization as a whole, given my skill set. And that 7-year-old boy, the system's changed since then, but at that point, his parents would not allow him. We found his parents. And it actually found his father, and his father didn't want to take him, but would not allow him to be adopted. So he went through the foster families, and it was an awful thing.
I didn't realize that could even happen.
It can't now. They've changed it, but this was a few years ago. And I wasn't in the position because of some things going on in my life to adopt him, but so I stayed close to him. But in my mind, I was giving him crumbs. And he invited me, I think he was like 26 and he got married, and he invited me to the wedding. And he was very anxious for me to be there. And when I got there, he says, wait a minute. And as the church filled, he escorted me down the aisle and put me at the front pew on his side, and the pew was empty. And I was the family.
Wow.
And so to me, I was giving Jason crumbs. I mean, I didn't think I was making that much of a difference. To him, I had given him more than anyone had given him.
That's interesting. I mean, Rama, it's one amazing story after another about you. You had that role model in your father of philanthropy from a young age, and you've given that, obviously, to your own sons. I'm interested in your observations at Bookends because it's so kid-driven. Have you noticed that the kids are the role models to a lot of the adults in their philanthropic efforts?
Well, let me just suffice it to say that we have a board of directors of 23, and these are a tremendous amount of great professional people. Everyone's united by the mission. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how powerful these people are, both professionally and personally. And
you're a master at assembling, like the dream team. You find people's strengths and add them to your team. I think it's pretty magnificent. It's like Phil Jackson. As a basketball coach, I really believe that you find a person's strength and assemble your board based on that strength.
Well, and also, I mean, that's what they want to give as well. I mean, they want it's healthy for the organization. But my point is that our youngest board member is 13 years old. And we have a 16-year-old as well, and we treat them as full board members. And I recently got a letter. We recently opened offices for the first time for Bookends. We had always operated. Everyone had home offices, and it was a great way for me to be able to hire people in the best and give them the best of situations to work as strongly as they could for the organization. So we opened offices, and as a celebration, we brought in we reached out to the old board members, and there was one young man who started with us at 16, and he's now a doctor. And he wrote me a note. This is Josh. And he wrote me a note, and he said, I have to tell you, one of the times when I really realized my own power was at a board meeting. And Brandon was at that point probably 15, and he was on the board, and Josh was 16. And something came up about the program, and we were talking about it at the board level about different ways of reaching out the program. And Brandon and Josh sort of whispered to each other and said they really didn't like the way the board was going on this vote. And they kind of looked at each other and said, well, I'll do it if you'll do it. And they kind of stood up and said, we need to talk about this a little bit more. And they put out their idea, which was contrary to what was going on in that room, and changed the vote. And so Josh writes, he said, I knew if I could do that, the strength and courage that it took from me as a kid to stand up to this board, and then for them to hear me and for that to affect, that's the empowerment. And that's what I think we can do. And that's what I think we can do with our children.
How do we get people involved in Bookends?
Oh, thank you so much. Go on our website. Everybody can make a difference. It's anything from, yes, do we need your individual book donations? Absolutely. Do we want your Boy Scout and Girl Scout and Eagle troops all involved? Absolutely. Reach out in different creative ways. A lot of people are doing birthday parties for books instead of having their kids have gifts.
I remember a girl for her bat mitzvah. She had in lieu of presents, she had everybody bring books.
And even took a different level. It took it to a different level. That she dedicated some of her favorite books, and she would put she put a book plate in them, and that was to each of the guests. Oh. Okay, so it wasn't going to stay with the guest. It was going to be moved on in the guest honor. So she'd reached out to all of her guests to really say, this is how I'm going to do it. Bookends is also very economical. For every $1,000 that someone donates, we get $5,000 worth of books. It's powered by our kids. It's a very lean organization, the way we do it, and we still need the $1,000. As in every organization, you have your overhead. But most importantly, we need everybody to connect with us in any way possible. Everyone who's inspired by reading and inspired to move this forward and get.
Well, and it's even more important now in an age where we have a lot of public libraries cutting back on hours and things like that. The website is bookends.org, everybody, www.bookends.org. And I'm constantly impressed by the amount of books and the different types of organizations you help. You don't just help school libraries, you also create classroom libraries. You've dealt with treatment centers, rehabilitation centers. You've given books to students throughout the United States, but after the Gulf catastrophe, you were right there immediately. You helped in Haiti, you've helped in Israel. So again, if you can pitch us for 20 seconds, what can a person do right now to get involved in Bookends?
Go on our website. We'll have, and actually we're relaunching it. We keep it updated, so please go on the website and you'll see all different types of volunteer activities. Be creative. We're always we're looking for new and different ideas. We love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Rob, and I never cease to be amazed by you. Folks, it's out there, it's possible. At any given opportunity, anybody can make a difference, including you. Remember, people make a difference, you can make a difference too. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again next time on People Make a Difference. Thank you.